There are a multitude of ways Adam Peters and Lance Newmark can attack the trade deadline for the Washington Commanders. With a 4-2 start in year one of the recalibration, Washington does not necessarily have to do or not do at the deadline. I'm here today to walk you through Washington's options to stand pat, aggressively pursue trades, and also possibly cut bait with a few pieces of fat on this roster. I am Rio Robinson. We're a little under 3 weeks away from the NFL trade deadline of November 5th at about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today we're going to break down realistically what Washington's needs are and what we could do at the trade deadline. We're going to break down some unrealistic options, some feasibly realistic options, and whether Washington should cut bait with some of the fat left over from Ron Rivera's regime. But before we get to that today, this video was brought to you and powered by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, home of the fastest payout in the industry, using promo code YouTube150 for your first deposit of 150% sign-up bonus, $125 on your second and third, for up to $2,000. Bet responsibly and do it using BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. Let's get after it. Adam Peters and Lance Newmark. Washington did not only sign one big fish executive this offseason, they signed two. And I know a lot of fans have not yet got used to the fact that we have real executives running the program here. It is no longer Dan Snyder and one of his hired henchmen, Vinny Serrato, Bruce Allen. It is no longer the sort. There is no longer a handcuffed GM, Kyle Smith, Scott McCloughan. We have two guys with amazing backgrounds, resumes, and histories as execs in this league, and who have helped put together two of the better franchises in this conference and in this league right now, the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. So I need Washington fans to pump the fucking brakes a little bit. We have guys that were highly sought out and coveted league-wide running the show here in DC right now. So we do not have to fret. We do not have to panic. We need to trust in Chef Peters and Lance Newmark, because so far they're passing with flying colors. If you're one of those fans to say, no, they neglected the cornerback position, so this year was a failure, you're wrong. You are drastically and terribly wrong, because there was never a reality that Washington was going to check every box in one offseason. Adam Peters and Lance Newmark were hired 8 months ago, 9 months ago, not even a full pregnancy term they've been here, and they've already put together a roster substantially increased Washington's floor in year one of a rebuild. They can keep throwing around the word recalibration all they want to. That was not a very good or average roster at all. You remember the pregnant pause Adam Peters gave in his opening press conference when David Aldridge asked him for the state and condition of Washington's current roster. Adam Peters had to stop for a second to gather himself, because that roster is hot ass. And Ron missed on hella picks, and we got very low ceiling free agent acquisitions over the past 4 years. So this was never going to be a 1 year fixer upper. But what Adam Peters did in year one is he drafted guys and signed guys who immediately raised the floor here in DC. And that's why Washington's able to get off to a hot start, 4-2. And we are now the favorites to win the division right now. We have a 68% chance of making the playoffs in year one. While that is fun, that is dandy, we struck gold at the quarterback position with the second overall pick, a pick that probably helped entice a guy like Adam Peters to come to Washington. $100 million to spend, a second overall pick. You get to handpick the quarterback of your choice in the draft, and you get to get a bunch of culture starters in place in free agency to help get the team going. Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, even made a post-camp signing of Noah Brown that has turned out to be a phenomenal signing for the team so far. But there is still a litany of holes on that roster, and Washington still has big needs at cornerback. Shit, give us a whole room full of them. Pass rusher, and I don't care what any of you say, we still have a hole at wide receiver. Don't Ashburn syndrome yourself into believing we are set at the wide receiver position. Terry McLaurin is the only sure thing in our wide receiver room. Our number 2 receiver is an old-ass tight end named Zach Ertz. Our number 3 receiver is Austin Eckler with 15 catches for 198. Our number 4 receiver is Noah Brown with 13 catches for 139. While I just said Noah Brown was a good signing for this team, Noah Brown at most should be a team's 3rd receiving option. That is not a wide receiver 2 or co-wide receiver 1. So, yes, edge rusher and corner are bigger needs, but we are not going to pretend like we don't still have a need at the receiver position. Luke McCaffrey will develop to be a complementary piece at some point. And yes, he does get open. He blocks hard. I understand it. But our wide receiver room, not named Terry McLaurin, has 1 touchdown through 6 weeks of the season. I'm going to say that one more time. Our wide receiver room, not named Terry McLaurin, has 1 touchdown through 6 weeks of the season. So don't fucking tell me we don't have a needed receiver still as well. Yes, we have bigger fish to fry, but there is still a little goldfish that's flying around that we could still use in the receiver room. But today I want to walk you through what Washington's options are at the trade deadline. And we can start with pipe dreams. Far-fetched big fuckers that Washington should surely check in on, but are going to be hung up on ultimately because these are guys that have no business being discussed or ever traded during the trade deadline. And the 2 candidates that fit that billing are reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, and Las Vegas Raiders edge rusher Max Crosby. They're both on terrible football teams right now. The Browns have laid the biggest egg of 2024 so far. They're 1-5. They stink. We whooped their ass earlier this year. And when we played them, Myles Garrett had a clean sheet. He did not record a single stat, but the Browns could ultimately be in fire sale mode. And if that's the case, you touch base on Myles Garrett and a couple other guys we're going to get to later on this list. The Raiders, they're continuing to be in a rebuild as well. They look like they're in one of those continuous rebuilds that will not stop until they land a quarterback. Max Crosby made some interesting comments yesterday, like, I'm here to win. But I'm here to win no matter where I'm at. I'm not here for no rebuild, and I'm here to win whether I'm here or wherever I am. It was a lot of word soup, but I don't think Max Crosby or Myles Garrett realistically are getting traded. That's why we're starting the list with unrealistic pipe dream, big fish fuckers that we have no business acquiring about, but you definitely check in on the situation. Next on the list, it would be an aggressive pursuit. It's probably not happening, but you at least check in on the situation because at least the talent's there. Hassan Reddick, 31-year-old edge rusher in one of the weirdest holdout situations we've seen in quite some time in New York. He's finally been granted permission to seek trade from the Jets after they traded for him from Philadelphia and didn't give him a contract. Very productive edge rusher, one of the most productive in the league for the last few years. Apparently, he's coming with a lot of baggage. I don't mind a little baggage because I think we got the coaching staff and the locker room ecosystem to rein that shit in if we brought him here. But Hassan Reddick terrifies me because he hasn't played a lick of football in the spring, the summer, or the first 7 weeks of the season. So are you even getting anything out of him in 2024? Why go take on something like that if you're not going to get immediate output from him? I think you at least check in on the situation. Don't see it happening. My next on my list is big name, perfect fit, wait till free agency. And that name is T. Higgins. Wide receiver T. Higgins, the number 1B receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. He is going to be one of the bells of the ball of the 2025 free agent class a year after getting the franchise tag in Cincinnati. He was very upset and even wanted out of there this offseason when they were not able to strike up a long-term deal. They are going to be pennying up and backing up the Brinks truck for Jamar Chase at some point this offseason. So T. Higgins, by the numbers game, is going to be the odd man out. I don't see them giving market deals to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So T. Higgins will be an unrestricted free agent next March when the new league year kicks off. Washington will probably be high on that list because guys are going to want to sign up to play for Jaden Daniels. He's a playmaker. While he's a great runner, he's a passer first, and he can do it from the pocket. He's going to distribute that ball like a point guard to any receivers that are here. He is making do with the weak-ass wide receiver room that we currently have here. I would love to have T. Higgins. Are we going to get him at the deadline? Most likely not. Call me crazy, but sitting at 2-4 with the third easiest strength of schedule here on out, I think the Bengals under Joe Burrow, even without a defense, are good enough that they're still going to qualify for the playoffs in the AFC this year. I still think that's a 10-win football team this year. Yes, at 2-4, I got them 8-5 through the next 13 games, or 8-4 through the next 30. I got them still getting the 10 wins this season. I know that math ain't exactly mathing, but Joe Burrow's playing good enough football. That schedule softens up, and if they take care of business in their division, they'll be good to go. I don't think T. Higgins is available right now, which moves us to real life. Let's get to the real life, realistic trade options for the Commanders in this upcoming deadline of November 5th, 2024. But before we get to those realistic options, here's a word from our sponsors at NFL All Day. Have you heard of NFL All Day? Site in which you can own the best moments from your favorite NFL players and teams. The moments are like digital trading cards with highlights from the NFL. Rip open packs to get moments just like with trading cards. 24/7 marketplace where you can buy and sell with other collectors. With NFL All Day, you're not just watching highlights, you're owning them. Grab the officially licensed NFL moments as NFTs, digital currency, and make them part of your collection now. Be a part of the passionate NFL community because it's not just about the game. It's about being a part of a growing community of fans and collectors who live and breathe football. These aren't just any highlights. They are the real deal, straight to your collection from players and teams, and you can relive the magic whenever you want. Whether you're starting fresh or adding to your stash, there's always a new pack to rip open or trade to make. Take part in challenges and compete with fellow collectors because who doesn't love a bit of friendly competition? Meet fellow fans, connect with other NFL enthusiasts. They have rookie packs right now, and freshly named Rookie of the Week, Jaden Daniels, will be something I'll be looking to collect. Those packs are going to be more of the popular ones you're going to see. You got to grab the moments from NFL's newest stars before they become household names. Your first rounder or your seventh rounder, go find all of the moments from the rookie stars before they make a name for themselves, like Gambit said, and you'll have to be there from the start. Sign up today and start collecting your favorite moments on NFL All Day. Realistic options for the Washington Commanders. We know Washington's biggest needs currently on the roster are cornerbacks, a whole stable of them, edge rusher, and wide receiver. You can say you're happy with the receiver room all you want to. You're lying to yourself. And that is Ashburn syndrome in a nutshell. Word to JP Finley and those guys over at Beltway Football. Feasible trade option number one for the Washington Commanders. We're going to start with the Washington's biggest position of need, cornerback. We are calling up Foxborough. We are calling up Gerard Mayo and the New England Patriots. And we are saying, we would like your 31-year-old cornerback, Jonathan Jones. So before you say, Rio, why would we want a over 30 cornerback who's under 5'11"? Because he's one of the more solid and dependable options available. Jonathan Jones, in his 8 seasons with the New England Patriots, that boy is healthy as hell. I see in his last 5 seasons, 16 games played, 16 games played. 16 games played, 15 games played, 16 games played, 6 games played, 16 games played, 14 games played. That is what I want. So, number one, healthy. Number two, reliable, solid starting corner. Is he a star? No. Is he better than every corner on the Washington Commanders currently? Abso-fucking-lutely. Even Noah Igbenogany, who's playing the best for us right now. He is a plug-and-play starter. You mix it up with him, St. Juice, and Noah Igbenogany, with Sainris still in the slot. At least we got the slot corner spot. Mikey is coming together quite nicely, as we all expected, despite the early struggles and shortcomings this season. Mikey Sainris still is going to be fine in the slot. We need an outside corner, and while Jonathan Jones doesn't fit the size profile of a typical Dan Quinn cornerback, it seems like a perfect fit. Someone had just suggested this trade the other day. It was Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports. He said, a 6th round pick should be able to fetch Patriots cornerback Jonathan Jones. And his blurb on him says, while he's easily the Patriots' most accomplished cornerback, new coach Gerard Mayo acknowledged recently that New England is just beginning a multi-year rebuild. At 31, approaching 2025 free agency, Jones therefore makes for a logical trade chip. He's been more solid than spectacular for years, but his experience would be invaluable to a Washington Commanders team with playoff contention hopes. And thanks to rookie Jaden Daniels, has struggled mightily on the back end of Dan Quinn's defense. He said the compensation involved should only take about a 2025 6th round pick, as he's 31 and he's going to be a free agent this offseason. Jones could come to the Commanders and immediately become a starter. 31, but he's very healthy and reliable through most of his career, and Washington wouldn't need to give up significant compensation to do so. Jones would provide help immediately without a long-term commitment. Washington has 2 6th-round picks as we speak. So Jonathan Jones is my first realistic, feasible trade option for the Commanders. He's a cornerback. He's under 5'11". He's dependable as hell. He's healthy as hell. And I believe he has 11 career interceptions. Shit, that's 11 more than a lot of the guys on this roster right now. Bring his ass down. I would take Jonathan Jones in DC. Number 2, I know, Rio, we got bigger needs. Listen, it is still a need of ours. Wide receiver Deontay Johnson. We played them this weekend, the Carolina Panthers. They have the entire team on the injury report. Deontay Johnson's on that list. I think that's a business decision. I think he expects to be dealt by the trade deadline. Despite the fact that the Panthers just acquired him this year, he has an expiring contract and he's balling for them. He has a little bit under 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. And before you scoff at 3 touchdowns, that is 3 more than every receiver not named Terry on the roster, or De'Ami Brown. De'Ami Brown is the only receiver not named Terry McLaurin with a touchdown for the Commanders through the first 6 weeks. So don't tell me we don't need another receiver. Receiver is a position that actually gets traded at the deadline, and I think Washington should at least be acquiring Deontay Johnson. I like Deontay Johnson as a number 1 for the Carolina Panthers. He doesn't even need to be that here in DC. As a complimentary option opposite Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson would make a ton of sense for the Washington Commanders. He has the versatility to play on the outside and the inside, highly productive, very good wide receiver, sure-handed wide receiver. That would add a lot to the room. And you could put him outside opposite Terry. You could put him in the slot, and you can run a lineup of Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Deontay Johnson. He is a significant upgrade over every receiver not named Terry McLaurin in the room. Deontay Johnson would make sense to call maybe a 4th-round pick. Receivers are going for 3rd-round picks. He's younger than Amari Cooper and Devontae Adams, so maybe one of those extra 3s Washington has, that would go for Deontay Johnson. Or 4th. It may not take a 3rd with an expiring contract on the way. To close out my realistically feasible option, Zarius Smith. It could be a fire sale in Cleveland right now. It could be a fire sale. I would love to have one of their corners. I don't know if they're going to come off him, though. I think if they had to pick, Martin Emerson and Denzel Ward are going to stay, and they're going to ship Greg Newsome out of there. Isn't having the sharpest 2024 season, but he'd be a huge upgrade to Washington secondary. But I don't think he's available. The guy who I do think is available is Zarius Smith, edge rusher opposite Myles Garrett. Washington is hurting at edge, especially if Dorrance Armstrong is hurt. Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler are the only guys on the roster right now who look like they can add consistent pressure. And even with rookie 7th rounder Javonte Jean-Baptiste injured, we need some help at the edge rusher position. You would love to be in the conversation for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, but that is not happening. Let's live in the real world for a second. Zarius Smith is probably the most realistic edge rusher we can add to this roster. He's getting up there in years, but Washington could definitely afford to add another veteran on that unit. So my realistic trade options for the Commanders: cornerback Jonathan Jones, New England Patriots; wide receiver Deontay Johnson from the Carolina Panthers; and edge rusher Zarius Smith. Put with an asterisk in this category, DeAndre Hopkins. Nuke Hopkins, he played in Cliff Kingsbury's offense before, so he wouldn't need any time to get acclimated, and he's in a shit show situation for the Tennessee Titans right now, so you can put him in an asterisk in that conversation. And to close out Washington's options at the trade deadline, we're trimming some fat, some extra meat on the bone that may not be here for the long term, and taking anything you can get for these guys, starting with cornerback Emmanuel Forbes. I don't think he would command any type of robust market around the league. But if anybody, I read an article about the Ravens, and I read an article about the Chargers potentially calling us for Emmanuel Forbes. Anything more than carry out with mumbo sauce and a grape soda for Emmanuel Forbes, you take it. If it's a 6th round pick, you sprint that motherfucking call in and you take it there. Emmanuel Forbes is someone I could see us trying to deal at the deadline, but if we don't ultimately get any calls or any real trade value for him, he can stay on the roster until the end of the season. But I really think the verdict's already in on that guy. Jamin Davis is another name that I would put on this list. 2 Ron Rivera 1st-round picks that did not turn out to be quality players. Fans still believe and are trying to make fetch happen with Jamin Davis, the edge rusher, but these guys being healthy scratches on a bad defense tells you everything you need to know. We have one of the most bare-bone rooms at cornerback and edge in the entire league. If you cannot dress on Washington's defensive roster, that tells me all I need to know about what coaches feel about these guys. Take your feelings out of it. Take Ashburn syndrome out of the situation. The fact of the matter is, Adam Peters has to purge most of what Ron Rivera brought in here. You see Chase Young's sorry ass on Thursday Night Football. You see what Jahan's sorry ass is doing up in Philadelphia. They're no longer here. Expect Forbes and Jamin Davis to be on the way sometime soon. If not at the deadline, don't expect either back on this roster in 2024. A lot of Ron's guys, don't expect them to stick around for what we're building here in DC. But that is my thoughts on the trade deadline. There are options out there for Washington, realistic and unrealistic. I think fans need to fucking relax, though. We're sitting at 4-2, potentially looking 5-2 in the face with the homecoming Carolina Panthers in town this weekend. Let Adam Peters and Lance Newmark cook, because we're not used to having savvy, business-minded football people running the program here in DC. Well, that is the case now. So we don't need to go all in, risk it for the biscuit for one little playoff run. We're trying to build up a sustainable beast and a competitive and contending football team here. We got some checks at some of the best positions in the organization. We got a GM now. We got an assistant GM now. We got a good coaching staff, and we got a motherfucking quarterback. So sit back, relax, kick your feet up, and let Adam Peters cook. There was no way he was going to ever fill in every single hole on this porous roster in one offseason, but those are my ideas and options for the trade deadline. The team can stand pat, they can aggressively pursue talent, and they can also trim fat from the Ron Rivera regime of years past. But that's where I stand on the matter. That's all I got for right now. This video, per usual, sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. YouTube 150 for 150% sign up bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your second and third for up to $2,000. I will see y'all a little bit later. Hail to the Washington Commanders. Commander Rio out.